Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are talking about how after looking over Nintendo's financials, there seems to be a glaring question that remains. It appears Nintendo still has a big secret that they've yet to reveal for this year of 2024, or at least the fiscal year. What's going on? What are they holding back? Well, that's what we're talking about today. But before going forward, let me ask that if you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit that notification bell. So if you haven't heard yet, Nintendo put out their quarterly results of the period between April 1st of 2024 through June 30th of 2024, and we've gotten some interesting updates. Nintendo Switch is now at 143.42 million units worldwide. It's growing, but not as fast as some people were hoping, because when we take a look at their financial highlights, this quarter in net sales, they are down 46.5%, and in operating profit, they are down 70.6%. And so this is leading some people to go all doom and gloom. Nintendo's not doing well, the Switch is on its way out, and things just don't look promising. And to that I'll say, to some extent, but this is really pretty much expected. When we took a look at last year's Q1 financial highlights, they were up 50% from the prior year in net sales and up 82.4% in operating profit. And so what you might realize here is that Q1 of fiscal year 2024 is the standout. So by comparison, this year isn't as bad. It is still not amazing, but if you take a look at these numbers here, net sales 246.6 billion yen, and operating profit 54.5 billion yen. This year compared to 2023, or rather fiscal year 2023, it was 307 and 101.6. So yes, numbers are still lower than 2 years ago, but they should be. Switch sales have been trending down for a while already. This is the 4th year of declining sales, and so when looking at it from that perspective, that's not so bad. But you might be wondering, okay, but they had such a great quarter last year, what happened? Well, what happened last year is that Nintendo released the new Super Mario Bros. Movie, they released the OLED edition for Tears of the Kingdom, and Tears of the Kingdom itself. And all three of these are responsible for that huge spike that quarter. Here you can see that the sell-through for just Tears of the Kingdom last year is bigger than the total sell-through for games this year from Nintendo. I think that illustrates the point really well. Nintendo went really hard last year. But let's take a little bit of a deeper look here. So we see that for this Q1 of fiscal year 2025, the quarter that we're talking about here, they sold 2.1 million Nintendo Switches. But in comparison to Q1 of last year, they sold 3.91 with the boost from the Mario movie, the Tears of the Kingdom OLED, and Tears of the Kingdom. That all helped. And so there is a significant drop off here. They're selling almost half as much as last year. But then also taking a look at software trends. We have a nice little line chart here. Q1 of last year, this is where they were at. And then the next quarter they trended downwards. But for the holidays they spiked up quite a bit. Then the final quarter of the year, it was the lowest quarter. And now we're seeing here, this is the current quarter, they didn't pick up too much. So I think this is an interesting chart to look at here because it highlights some things. One, the holidays is by far the best period of the year. And yeah, there was a spike here because of everything they had going on, but Nintendo can still turn things around. They can still have a couple good quarters and get close to their financial forecast. But this is where things get a little weird. Because when we look at their forecast from last year versus this year, we notice something interesting. So last year, for the first fiscal year quarter, they sold 3.91. That's almost 4 million, which had them pacing, assuming all quarters are equal, which they're not, to about 16 million, which, yeah, they were able to hit their forecast this time around, which was 15.7 from last year. But in contrast, this time around, it doesn't look that good. They sold 2 million. You multiply that by 4, or it was 2.1, 8.4. That's not even close to this 13.5. yes, the holiday sales are going to be pretty good. When we look at that holiday quarter from last year, it was not even double of their second best quarter of the year. So let's say for the holidays, they triple this quarter. And we equal out the other quarters. So 2 plus 2 plus 2, 6, plus another 6 for the triple quarter, 12. Still not hitting that forecast of 13.5 million. So then what's going on? Well, the fact of the matter is, as I mentioned earlier, sales are going to continue to trend downwards. And we already know that Nintendo is planning to announce the next Nintendo console fairly soon, and once that next generation comes around, that will turn things around. And things look a little bit worse right now because of the spikes of the great things they had this time last year, Tears of the Kingdom and the Mario movie. But still does not look like they're going to be hitting their forecast at this point in time. Which brings us to the point of this video. What is Nintendo holding back? Because they maintain their forecast of 13.5 million. They are not changing it after this poor quarter. They still think somehow they can hit this number. So what is it that they're holding back that will enable this to happen? Is it going to be the Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom with that new Switch Lite version? That might help, but Switch Lites don't sell as much as OLEDs, and even if it was an OLED, I still am not sure that would be enough to make that much of a difference. Echoes of Wisdom is no Tears of the Kingdom. I'm going to buy Echoes of Wisdom day one, I am excited about it, but its sales potential is far less. Super Mario Party Jamboree I think will make a big difference, but will it make any more of a difference than Mario Wonder from last year? And will Mario and Luigi Brotherhood make any more of a difference than Super Mario RPG from last year? Maybe a tiny bit, but if all things are equal, I don't see how these games are going to turn things around so much that they for sure hit their forecast this time around. So basically, Nintendo needs something else to hit this forecast. And no, it's not Donkey Kong Country Returns HD in January for the final quarter of the fiscal year, the weakest quarter for most fiscal years. What I think is going to happen is that Nintendo will announce the successor to the Nintendo Switch, what we've been calling Nintendo Switch 2. Now, from what we've been told, that 13.5 million forecast does not account for anything beyond Nintendo Switch. So it isn't some sort of little trick here where they're going to have Switch 2 come out March 3rd of 2025, and that last month of sales is going to help them reach their forecast. Those sales aren't being accounted for here. However, once Nintendo shows off the Switch 2, or is at least close to showing off the Switch 2, I believe Nintendo will also announce a series of price drops for the entire Switch family. We have yet to see an official price drop across the board for the Nintendo Switch, which is extremely interesting because we are in the 8th year of the console. Most consoles would be done already and we would be playing the next generation system, yet here we are with the Switch, and not only is that not the case yet, but there hasn't even been a single price drop. And so while we may be in the 4th year of declining sales, and the games coming out this year likely aren't going to be as strong as some of the prior years in terms of total sales, Nintendo is still maintaining relatively decent numbers, all things considered, and once they announce the price drop, I think it's going to make for a big difference. Because what I think Nintendo's plan is here is to continue Switch for a few more years. It's not going to end once Switch 2 is announced. You look at the support they're putting out for Switch right now, it's very reminiscent of the final years of 3DS. And 3DS was supported for a few years into the Switch lifecycle. And I think where a lot of the confusion comes in is that many people still think that the way things are going to go down is that the Switch is going to come to a sputtering stop, sales are going to have to decline to a putrid level, and games are going to have to stop coming out before Nintendo brings out their new console. That is not how it's going to work. Yes, in the past, things may have gone somewhat like this because Nintendo was spreading themselves thin between two different consoles they'd be supporting at the time between their handheld and home console divisions. But now it's just a Switch. Nintendo's development pipeline is a lot better than it ever has been. That's not going to happen. They're going to continue to push Switch years into the Switch 2's lifecycle. And so what I think what will ultimately happen is that once the Switch's price drop, it will be at a cheaper price, and thus will be appealing to a different market. People who don't care for the most cutting edge technology are just wanting to play some fun games, which the Switch has a huge catalog for and is still building, and they will be able to enjoy this for years to come. So there is a lot of value there, and once you price drop the console, a lot of people are likely going to jump in on this. And so I think this is the remaining big secret for Nintendo's 2024. A series of price drops. I think this is what's going to make the difference to allow them to hit that financial forecast, or at least be able to get close. I'm sure they have some other software announcements to make a little bit later into the year, a few little things that may come out on the eShop or what have you, and a few other little things to fill up the end of the fiscal year, February and March. But I think the biggest needle mover will be a series of price drops. Now, the challenge with this is that if you drop the price of the console, you also don't make as much money per sale. So that's going to be a little bit of an interesting balance. And to consider possibilities here, maybe it's not a price drop, maybe it's something else. When we take into consideration the value of the yen, Nintendo may be hard-pressed to drop the price of the console in certain regions of the world. So how might Nintendo combat this? Are they simply going to continue to try and hope that they can turn things around without a price drop? And will simply take the L once the year comes around and just accept that they weren't able to get that close to hitting their forecast? I suppose it's possible. But if they are forecasting 13.5 million, it's because they think they can do it. And if they're still doing it after this relatively weak quarter, then I do think they got something they're holding back. Maybe it's not a price drop, but what might it be? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.